Each week on Culinary Confidential, Christina Cates, a seasoned foodie who has worked at some of New York City's top restaurants, will share her passion for the culinary world. Whether you're a professional chef, a restaurant enthusiast, or a lover of good food, Christina dives into the heart of hospitality, exploring the trends, triumphs, and challenges facing the food service profession. And you won't want to miss her chats with some of the most interesting and influential industry voices. And now, please take your seat at the table as Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates starts now, exclusively on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates. This show is produced in association with my dear friend, Lucas A. Ferrara. I have a very special visitor in the studio. My son, Kingston, my oldest son. Kingston, hello.
Hello, Mommy.
Are you excited to be here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we're moving and grooving now, and this is show number 15. Time is flying on Culinary Confidential. The show is going to be all about my favorite position in the restaurant, the maitre d'hotel, also known as the maitre d'. If you've been listening to the show for the last couple of months, you know by now that I'm a foodie and someone who made a career out of managing amazing restaurants. The maitre d' part was always my favorite. In that particular position in the front of the house, it's where I always felt most comfortable and where I brought the most value to my role in restaurant operations. The other responsibilities you have in managing restaurants is like overseeing beverage costs and making sure the chef runs a tight food cost. These are crucial for executing successful establishments, but they were always my least favorite things to do. Being at the front, shaking hands and kissing babies, and taking handshakes full of money is an adrenaline rush like none other. Everyone wants to know the maitre d', because who doesn't want to feel like they're a VIP when they know the person with the key to getting into the hardest table in the city? Maitre d' is a French word that translates to master of the house. In some restaurants, the manager functions as the maitre d', but in very formal restaurants, this is a position where the person solely does this job. The responsibilities of the maitre d' include mostly supervising the front of the house waitstaff, welcoming guests and assigning tables to them, taking reservations, and ensuring that guests are satisfied with their dining experience. They are the first and last impression with the guest, the first person they see when entering the restaurant, and the last person they see on their way out. My first guest this evening has held the key to some of the toughest tables in New York. Michael Cecchi-Azzolina is a seasoned maitre d' and author renowned for his extensive career in New York City's restaurant industry. Over the past 35 years, he has managed the front-of-the-house operations at several esteemed establishments, including La Russe, the Water Club, the River Cafe, Raoul's, Minetta Tavern, and Le Coucou. In 2022, Michael published his memoir, Your Table is Ready, Tales of a New York City Maitre d', offering an insider's perspective on the dynamics of high-end dining and the personalities that frequent these venues. In 2023, he opened Cecchi's, an American bar and grill located in New York City's West Village. I love this restaurant and frequent it often because it aims to provide a welcoming atmosphere reminiscent of classic New York restaurants and features a menu that emphasizes simplicity and quality. Later in the hour, by popular demand, I have Bismark Irving coming back on the show. Biz was on the show just a few weeks ago, but I had so many people reach out to me and say they really enjoyed listening to him, so he'll join me again in the studio tonight. Bismark was basically a restaurant celebrity when he ran the nightclub Rainbow and Stars at the Rainbow Room. His maitre d' style was so impressive and elegant. I've said before, he taught me everything I know. He has some great celebrity-filled stories he wants to share, so stay tuned for that because the whole last segment is going to be, just real-life stories of the industry during the peak of his career. Let me please welcome to the show Michael Cecchi-Azzolina, owner of Cecchi's on 13th Street and author of the book Your Table is Ready.
Hi there.
Hi! I loved your book. It was giving Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain vibes, like some real behind-the-scenes talk about what goes on in restaurants, the debauchery, the glamour, the excitement. You covered it all. Well done. I want to talk...
Thank you. Well,
I want to talk...
That sums it up right there.
I know. It really... I got to tell you, I don't love to read. The way my brain works, maybe I've not been diagnosed with something, but like reading for me is actually something that I have to really focus on and sometimes reread pages just because I get distracted. But your book, I just blew through in like a weekend and really enjoyed it. So thank you for that.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I bought it at your restaurant.
I was going to say, I hope you bought it, didn't borrow it.
No, I'm going to pass it along to all my industry people, though. I want everyone to read it. Okay. But I do want to talk about the book because it is a real summary of the career that you had in the industry. Let me ask, what inspired you to write the book?
I had a long acting career, and restaurants paid for my theater habit. And actors, we tell stories. And when I would get back into the restaurants, I just told stories about the wacky people and the experiences that happened. And for years, everyone said, you should write this down, you should write this down, you should write this down. Well, I finally wrote it down. I was the maitre d' Le Coucou, and I was also a manager, so you had to close the restaurant a few nights a week. And after the last table was seated, I didn't have much to do. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start writing down these stories. That's what I did.
You did it kind of in real time. Some of it.
I mean, the book traverses 35 years, but I wrote the book in real time as I was working for the most part. And then my younger daughter was born and I stopped, and then COVID hit, and I wound up getting a writing scholarship, which allowed me to finish the book. So it was, probably a process of about 3 years, but I stopped writing for about a year and a half.
That's amazing. I really enjoyed how you kind of broke the book down into the chapters. Like each chapter was kind of dedicated to where you were in your career, what restaurant you were at the time, and just telling the stories of what was going on in those places, in those moments. And I have to say, you lived an exciting life. And I mean, that's putting it mildly. Like, this is a conservative network. We can't even really talk about the things that happened in your life in those restaurants because I'll get fired from this job. But
don't do that.
I'll tell you my favorite story, just to give a teaser, was the story at Raoul's when you had the two women there that would come in and the butter in the booth.
Yes.
That's all I can say.
It's something like you just live your life. I never thought of it as being one thing or the other. It was just putting one foot in front of the other and continuing. And a life is a life. It's I think remarkable how it unfolds. And there you are. I think I'm glad I'm still here.
Oh, I mean, honestly, in reading your book, I think you're lucky to still be here.
Yeah, no, I am.
I mean, especially really that one story about when you were at the River Cafe and that mobster, Fat Tony, he had it out for you.
He had it out for me, yeah. I thought I was going to, if not get my legs broken, dumped in the river.
You were going to have concrete shoes on in the Hudson.
Yeah, and then, I write about the AIDS crisis, and, I survived that, and, many people didn't. So, it's been a journey.
Well, you worked with some really big chef names in the industry before they really reached the peak of their stardom. Tell me about what it was like to work in the kitchens where Charlie Palmer and David Burke were at the helm.
Yeah, so, I mean, it started with Larry Forgione, who's really the godfather of American cuisine. Mm-hmm. He was leaving the River Cafe. I was brought in there as a captain, and as he left, Charlie Palmer took over, and no one knew that Charlie Palmer was going to become a great chef. He was working at a country club. He was a country club chef, came to the River Cafe, and just, took the ball and ran with it. Forgione had really created the basis and the foundation of American cooking, and Charlie embraced it and made it his own. So, while you're there, we got 3 stars. Yeah. And Charlie became sort of a known entity. At the time, David Burke was a line cook working there, promoted to sous chef, working under Charlie, and then said, hey, I'm leaving, guys. And he went to Paris to stage for, I think, almost a year. And then when he came back, he had learned so much there, knew so much already. And Charlie was about to leave and do his own restaurant. And they offered David Burke the chef job. And David took it and, again, ran with it and made really a name for himself. He also got 3 stars. And his creations were remarkable. just remarkable. I mean, I was there when he was creating pastrami cured salmon, which is in every grocery store now across the country, made by everybody. But he was making it took him maybe 30 iterations to create the pastrami cured salmon. And he just kept at it. He was fanatical about his preparations, throwing things together. His surf and turf was swordfish and duck liver.
Wow.
It was something no one ever did. And he just, he was a really, really, really remarkably creative chef. So it was exciting to work with that. Also, Charlie was one of the nicest guys in the world. And David, as most people know, was crazy. And we would go toe to toe. I was the maitre d', and if he didn't like the way the room was seated, he'd start screaming at me or this or that. I'd scream back at him. But, back in the day, it was kind of like that. And by the end of the night, we made up, went out and had a drink. But it was passion. He was so passionate about what he did. And the River Cafe was one of the top restaurants in New York City, and our guests were passionate about coming there. We had everyone, celebrities came and sports figures and the neighborhood guests and the high finance guys and ladies and all of that. So it was really a remarkable place to be at a point where American cuisine was really taking off, really becoming at the level of what the French were doing, who were, had all the 3 and 4 stars.
I love it. I want to read an excerpt from your book. In the chapter called Restaurant 101, it's on page 40. You really hit the nail on the head in capturing the essence of how restaurants can be the biggest thrill or just complete chaos. So as you write, nothing compares to the energy of a busy restaurant, especially one filled with celebrities from all walks of life. The lauder, the toasts, the intensity of the alcohol-fueled conversations, the celebrations, birthdays and anniversaries, and the joy, happiness, and fun that comes from partaking with strangers. People in for a night and in whom you don't really know, no matter how much they act like they have known you their whole life. But for that moment, these strangers love you like family. It's perfect. Partially because it lacks any of the painful connections or remembrances from your past. I thought that was so special that I actually highlighted it because people that don't work in restaurants, they don't get what it's actually like. Like, you have to have a certain personality to be able to turn it on with over and over and over again, night after night, day after day, week after week for, somebody like you for 35 years. That takes a special kind of person. But you have to treat everyone as if they're the biggest deal that ever existed. And the maitre d' is just a special role. And I can tell, obviously, you've done that well because you've made a career out of it. And as I mentioned in the summary, and that's where I felt like I was always best fitted in the restaurant. It wasn't the beverage cost and things like that. It was being at the front, being in front of the people and making people feel like $1 million.
Well, it's an addiction. Yeah. It's crazy, but the adrenaline that you get from it and the joy of meeting all these different people. I've been very fortunate to work in some of the best restaurants in New York City, and I've met everyone. And it's remarkable, and you meet some of the most incredibly wonderful people in the world, from the couple down the block to heads of state to, I don't know, Barbra Streisand, Al Pacino, you name it, sports figures. That's a rare spot to be in, to be able to actually not just meet these people, but they want to engage with you because they want to be in your restaurant and they want to have a good table. And to do that, people pretty much do a lot. But there's an addiction to it. Look, at my restaurant right now, we are crazy busy. It's the season, and everyone wants to be here. And my maitre d', a woman named Christina Banderas, we had a rough night the other night. We were so busy. We were running around. We had to bring tables up from downstairs. We had to go borrow chairs from next door because parties went from 6 to 8, from 4 to 7, and we try to accommodate people. Mm-hmm. And the night was nuts, and we broke records in terms of how many covers we did and the people in the room, and everyone was celebrating, and so far as I can tell, had a wonderful time. At the end of the night, we're down in the office. She looks at me. She goes, "This is the most insane business in the world, and there's nothing more that I would want to do. I can't wait for tomorrow." You have to be crazy. You have to be crazy to do this because everyone wants something from you, and you're running the room, and the servers need something, the managers need to do that, the customers want something, you're out of glasses and all. It's a cacophony of needs and wants and desires. that you need to fulfill if you want to be successful. And I think, that's the joy I get from it, which I think is completely wonderful.
Yeah. Michael, stay right there. We have to go to commercial break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
All right, we're back. This show is all about the maitre d', my favorite position in the restaurant. And on the show tonight, I have Michael Cecchi-Azzolina, owner of Cecchi's on 13th Street, a restaurant that I have really grown to love and just appreciate because, he does it right there. Michael, I'll never forget when you first opened back in 2023, there was some hype around your restaurant opening, especially on social media and things like that. I was like, okay, Cecchi's, I'm going to check this out. So I went there, probably within the first month. And I always do a little bit of research before I go to a place. So I made sure I looked at the menu. I was on your website. I saw all the things. And when I got there, I saw you at the host stand. And I was like, oh, that's how this place is going to be. The owner is involved. That's a green flag for me. Now, I had a lovely table. We were brought over to the table. The dinner was fantastic. And you did something that restaurant owners and restaurant managers don't do anymore, which is touch the table. And you came by during, entrees, and I was with two other girlfriends, and you just, glided by and made sure we were happy with our selections that evening and we're enjoying ourselves. And that is the key to the success for a successful restaurant. I talk about it on the show all the time, why restaurants fail, why they succeed. And it's the personal connection with the management, the owners, and the guest that is the deal breaker. So tell me more about your style, about, owning the restaurant and touching the tables and how important that is.
Christina, we don't sell food. We sell an experience.
Love it.
And the experience begins when you walk through the transom. And you need to walk through that transom and be greeted by someone at the door. I was there that night. I'm in the restaurant. I was in the restaurant every day for the first 7 months. Now I take off Saturday and Sunday, but I'm here 5 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day. Look, it's my restaurant. It's my baby. And if I'm not here, it's not going to run the way I want it to be run. Even with the best intentions and the best people, it's a difference when I'm in the room. But people come here, they come for dinner, but they come for birthdays, for anniversaries, on a date, find a date, to celebrate. And it's not just about the food. And when you walk through that door, you've got to be met by the smiling face at the door. But the bar's right next to the door in my restaurant, and the bartenders are engaged and looking at you and not turned around and looking at their cell phone. And the lighting has to be right, and the ambiance has to be right, and the energy has to be right. And the energy is created by the people, but by the space that we're all in. And we've all got to be on the same page. And we really work hard at that. I don't hire people because of their resume. I hire people about who they are. I used to have a lot of people, a lot of waiters who worked at different restaurants. And look, it's not that difficult to wait tables in its essence. You're taking an order, putting it in a computer, it gets served, you drop the check, people leave. But there's so many different things involved in that. But the most important thing is for me is the person's personality. First of all, they need to like what they're doing here, because because if you don't like it, you've got to be out of your mind. It's a really hard job. As simple as in the essence it is, everything else makes it incredibly difficult. And so you have to be engaging. And the guests come in, and we try to remember everyone that comes through the door. Our neighbors are our most important guests, and we want to make you feel like this is your living room for the 2 hours that you're here. That yes, we're going to give you food. Hopefully the food is good. We try our best. But if it's not, if your steak is overcooked, if everything else is right, we'll recook that steak for you, and it's all is forgiven. You'll get it. It's the experience. And the service part of that is the most important element. If you walk into a restaurant, and like you said, I touch the tables, but managers don't, owners don't, because they're not there.
Yep.
Now, at least in New York City, restaurants are now owned by groups. Whoever these groups are, no one really knows. There might be a couple of people at the top who started the group, but they're not in the restaurant. Mm-hmm. They've now got 3, 4, 5 restaurants. So whoever created the original concept, who knows who they are? And if they're not there and overseeing it, well, you got this impersonal experience. And look, some restaurants are very successful at this, but I think it's been the dumbing down of service and the restaurant experience. And sadly, people are accepting it, and they're not fighting back against it. And I think it's one of the reasons why we are so busy, because we do give you the experience. We're there. I do touch a table. I go to every single table every night in the restaurant. 99% I try to get to. I want to know what people are doing. I want them to know that, hey, we're here. We're here for you to have a good time. We'll fix it if we screw it up, and we do screw it up. When I was a young waiter, I would go to Lutèce Restaurant. It was a 4-star French restaurant, considered the best restaurant in America, run by a chef named Andre Soltner. I would go for lunch. It was a $25 free fee, and I can afford it. And that's maybe $125 or $150 in today's money. Okay. But I would go because it was a great restaurant. I'm in the business. And after every service, the chef, Andre Soltner, put on his starched white coat and his hat top his head, and go into the dining room and go to every single table to see how their lunch was. And he did this all the time. And you felt like the Pope had just come to you and was blessing your table. No, it was remarkable, And you're sitting there, and this is legend that's going in. How was your lunch? Was everything good today? And he would go on to the next thing. Didn't matter who you were. And that's one of the greatest lessons in my career. People want to be acknowledged. They want to know that someone's in charge is looking out for them, and it really puts the icing on the cake of that experience.
Well said. There's this compatibility between theater people or actors like yourself, in the biz and in restaurants. Restaurants are a show, and the front of the house is the stage. And I don't think people really understand that when they're dining in a restaurant.
Yeah, when I started in the business, every waiter was an actor. That's what you had here. New York had a surfeit of acting schools, and it was natural for actors to gravitate to restaurants because there was flexibility. You made decent money, and it was a show. Look, this is a theater. We open the door every night. We make sure the music is right, the lights are right, everyone's prepared, the linens are put on the tables correctly, the tables are set correctly. So we need to set the set.
Yeah.
The set has to be right. So we open the door, and the audience enters, and that audience will go from 5 o'clock to sometimes 2, 3 in the morning. The show doesn't end, and people come for the show. As you say, whether they understand it or not, it is, it's a ballet here. It's a synchronicity of movements, of glasses and plates going, and it's nonstop. And for me, this is my theater. It's the best theater experience I've ever had in a way, because I get to meet each individual person in my audience. And people are wonderful. Even the ass.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. But you get them, and you need to, move on from it. I've done it long enough that I rarely get perturbed by a guest anymore. Very rarely. My servers do sometimes. They say, if it gets really bad, go outside and scream and let it out. Let us know you're going. Someone else will cover the table, but we'll take care of it. But, the bad guests are really a minority. There's not that many. But in some restaurants, that one guest can ruin an entire staff's evening. And you just can't let that happen because the other people that are around you are pretty much wonderful and are very happy to be here, very happy to be entertained and fed.
Absolutely. Listen, Michael, we're running out of time in our segment here, but I just want to know, everyone has that one place that they've worked at, which was like the pinnacle of their career, where they grew a lot in their role, enjoyed every minute of it, and made the best memories. What job was that for you?
You know, I get asked this question all the time, and each restaurant I worked at was where I was supposed to be in my life. It met a need, it fulfilled a need, and I got to learn. So they were all, you've read in my book, my stories, they were seminal parts of my life where I really learned about life and growing and who I was. But if I was backed against the wall, I'd have to say Le Cuckoo, because that was sort of the culmination of 30-plus years in the industry, where we got the James Beard Award for Best Restaurant in America, New York Times Best Restaurant in New York that year, and we were recognized for what we did, for all the incredibly intense hard work. So that was pretty special.
I love it. Michael, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show today. I'm going to see you at Cecchi's because I'm there all the time. I love the bartenders there. They are amazing. So for everyone listening out there, I want you to grab his book, Your Table is Ready, by Michael Cecchi-Azzolina. You don't have to go to the bookstore. You can buy it behind the bar also at Cecchi's, which is located at 105 West 13th Street. Michael, thank you again. I wish you continued success in your restaurant. I love when, restaurants are doing it right, and that's you, my friend. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. Thank you, Christina.
Okay, we'll be right back with Bismark Irving. He's coming on the show to share with us tales of Rainbow and Stars. It was the hippest nightclub at the Rainbow Room, which I never made it to, but he has the best stories. I want you to hear them. Stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970. The Answer.
Okay, we're back. We were just joined by Michael Cecchi-Azzolina from Cecchi's on 13th Street. And now we're joined by Bismark Irving, who was on the show a few weeks ago, but so many people reached out to me and messaged me, and they were like, we thought Biz was great. He had a great presence on the radio, a great voice, and like he had some great stories. So I said, Biz, you got to come back on the show. I'm doing the Maitre d' episode, and you were the Maitre d' king at Rainbow and Stars, which was the nightclub at the Rainbow Room. So I thought this was a good fit for you. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, Biz, obviously I've mentioned more times than I can count that I learned everything that I knew in the industry from you. You were my mentor, and you saw, the diamond in the rough from this Jersey girl that was 19 years old in the big city trying to work in restaurants. So you groomed me to be, a little Bismarck. We touched tables together at Tavern on the Green and really just, ran the place together, and it was so much fun. It was probably the best part of my career. And I want you to talk today about what makes a maitre d' so special. Like, what are the characteristics that make a great maitre d'? Because you were the best one that I've ever met.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question, and the answer is simple. It's simple. The maitre d' manages the staff, first of all, which means he has to train them.
Yes.
Because the staff is, of course, the most important part of the restaurant, next to the food. But if you don't have a staff that's trained well, you don't have customers.
That's right.
It's also maitre d' manages the reservations book.
Yep.
He sets the times for people to come in, and when estimates when they should leave, so you don't overbook, and you make room for walk-ins. The maitre d' also dresses the room.
Yes.
What do I mean by dress the room?
It was always your specialty.
Yeah, it's when you walk into a restaurant, you want to see the excitement of the restaurant, and the maitre d' controls that. You know, I like to see. I remember in the Rainbow Room we had this area where there was tables all around the windows, and then there was this area that wasn't windows. We called it the tunnel.
Oh.
and I would always see that, especially at Christmas time. We'd have all of these people that would come. Rainbow Room was kind of formal. It was
It was very formal.
It was very formal, but we'd have these people that come in, and we would accommodate them because we were not racist at the time. But all these people would come in with the Christmas sweaters, and I'd seat them all together. You know,
like ugly Christmas sweaters.
Like ugly Christmas sweaters. You
Gross.
know? And I wasn't making fun of them, but I thought they would enjoy being together, you know. and they'd like talk to each other. It's like, oh, where are you from? You know, it was fun. It was a party. But when you walk into the room, we always see the well-dressed people, the
Yes.
beautiful people. Yeah, I mean, celebrities we don't necessarily see right up front because we want to give them a little personal space. But when you walk through the room with a guest. And they see all this beautiful stuff. They think, "Wow, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be." And then you take them to the appropriate area where you think they should sit.
I love it. I want to talk about Rainbow and Stars because that was the famed nightclub at the Rainbow Room, which I never went to that because it closed, in 1998, I believe?
1999, I think.
1999. I mean, I've been to the Rainbow Room, but I've never been to the nightclub there. Tell me about that time in your life because I know you were hobnobbing with the best of the best, all the celebrities. They were there to see Bismark. You had the entertainment portion, the music and whatnot there, but everyone wanted to go see Biz.
Yeah, that was maybe one of the best times of my life.
Of course, how could it not be?
And I remember when I first went there. Actually, I was working at a 3-star French restaurant owned by the same proprietor, Joe Baum,
which we talked about in our other episode together.
Yeah,
Joe Baum.
and I remember they were planning the Rainbow Room while I was working at Aurora as a waiter, and I overheard him say we're going to make a nightclub in the Rainbow Room, and I said I want to run that nightclub, and I'll never forget. He said, "Why would you want those headaches?" I soon learned, but that's how I got the job.
At Rainbow and Stars.
Opening nights, we had opening night once a month, and it was a big deal. It was such a big deal that every local newspaper in town was there, every television station was there. And every celebrity that was in town was there at Rainbow and Stars. And it could be the first opening night we had was Tony Bennett.
Wow.
And he played for 1 week. So
it was kind of like a residency for like a week.
Well, everyone else played for 1 month. But that first opening, because Tony Bennett was so big, he only had a week to give us.
Oh, okay.
So he paid for 1 week, and the reservations were pretty much solid, sold out. It only sat 90 people.
Wow, intimate. Very intimate.
Very intimate. It was, we could squeeze 120 when I needed to, but it was built to seat 90 people.
Like Goodfellas style, when they would bring in the table on top of the other guests, like at the Copacabana, and just
not quite like that,
plop it in the middle.
Not quite like that, but we would, like I said, every celebrity in the world was there for opening night, and there'd be a little guy that would be sitting all the way in the back, and he's nervous, and he comes up to the front desk and he goes, "Excuse me, sir, if I give you $5, could I have a better table?"
Oh my God, $5! Get out of here!
And my boss at the time was very sassy, And he said, "Sir, you're sitting at a $5 table."
Yeah, exactly.
But many of my greatest people were there, of course, were like Rosemary Clooney, who played there every year they were open for 10 years. She had a show every February. She was there Valentine's Day every year.
And you were good friends with her.
And we became very good friends.
Yeah.
That's one of the privileges of working in the Rainbow Room or Rainbow and Stars was I got to know all these people. Rosie, I became so close to her that I would go to L.A. and visit her 2 or 3 times a year.
Nice life.
And I'd stay in her house, and her house was George Gershwin's old house.
Fancy.
1019 North Roxbury Drive.
Wow.
Right across the street was Lucille Ball.
Unbelievable.
Jimmy Stewart was on the corner in Beverly Hills. It was fun. It was fun. Fun
sounds
days.
it.
But Rosemary always sold out the restaurant, the club, so there was rarely an empty seat.
Right.
Except the one night where Rosie got sick.
Oh.
She did the first show, and she got sick, and she had to go to the hospital. What did we do?
Yeah, tell me. I'm dying to know.
Well, because the show was sold out, we had to try and find a replacement for her. So my friends at Radio City who produced our shows got Patti LuPone to come in.
Oh, wow.
At the last minute, like 5 hours before the show. Well, it's kind of difficult to publicize an act that quickly. So we did. All of Rosie's people canceled because they were there to see Rosie.
Uh-huh.
So it's 20 minutes before showtime, and we have 6 people sitting in the audience.
Oh, my goodness.
So what did I do? I went to the bar, which was jam-packed, and I brought everybody from the bar in to watch the show, and it was a fun show.
You always know how to pivot in a situation, Biz.
Yeah.
Listen, I read this article that you did. I don't even know when, but you talked about John Gotti in it. Can you tell that story? You want to tell that story?
I can tell that story, but
because he's dead.
I don't.
Right?
I
can
don't
tell
want
it.
to mention any names, but there were some mobsters that were there regularly, and it often was on a Friday night.
Uh-huh.
And everybody loved when they were there because all they did was pass out money. They'd pass out money to everybody, so everybody knew that they were there. It's like the busboy, the bathroom attendant. Just someone walking in the restaurant, they just give him $100.
Yes.
He would the orchestra. He wanted to hear a song. He'd give him $1,000. They'd run down to the music store and buy sheet music, and we'd make copies of it for the 20-piece orchestra.
Wow.
And they'd play the song, and they got $1,000 tip. And it was all fun. They drank Dom Perignon with strawberries. Very classy.
Very classy.
And on Saturday morning, you'd read about a mob shooting in Brooklyn.
So it was like their alibi.
I'm not saying.
Well, listen, where there's smoke,
happened.
there's fire. Oh, my goodness.
But that was fun.
Listen, how do you handle entitled, difficult customers? New York City is notorious for them, and especially places like Rainbow and Stars, where anyone who's coming there is an affluent, individual. How do you handle those situations where you can't give somebody something that they want and they want it now?
Yeah. Well, each situation is different. I'll tell you a couple of different scenarios. We have hecklers that come there. Mm-hmm. That presents a difficult situation, especially
hecklers for the entertainment.
Performers. When the entertainment is on, and there's hecklers that come there, and they talk and they disrupt, and everyone around them is upset, and the maitre d' is, of course, blamed for it because he's running the room or she's running the room. But Rosie Clooney handles it best. She simply stops the show, stops the band, and says, "Sir, you have no lines here. This is not your show."
Oh, my gosh.
If I will be happy to buy your dinner, or you can leave. That happened a couple of times. But in other situations... Well, I was talking to a friend today who reminded me the story of the guy that was eating did I tell the story? Dancing in the Rainbow Room?
No, I never heard it.
And
you mean the last time you were on the show?
No, he was dancing in the Rainbow Room and having a lot of fun and eating and drinking, and then at the end of the meal he says, "I don't want to pay for my fish because I didn't digest it." And what
do you even say to people like that?
Well, it's late at night, and I want to go home. And I said, "Well, listen, I'm going to take the fish off the check, and you come back tomorrow after you've digested your fish.
Oh, my gosh. And what did he say?
He just laughed and...
Did he pay for it?
No, he didn't.
Oh, my gosh. Honestly, you know what? I think that's the reason why I was so good in restaurants also, because it's not just about telling the guest what they want to hear in that moment. It's telling them how it is. Like, sometimes you have to say back to the guest in a nice way, in a firm but fair way, like, no, that's actually not what happened, but, no problem. I'll take that off the check for you, and kind of put them in their place slightly, but with a smile. And then they don't know what to do. And then they leave and they're like, okay, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow.
That can be very sensitive. But, each situation
you have to know
something different.
Have
you got
to
to know
handle
what
it.
you can get away with. So we're talking about difficult customers.
Yeah.
I had a difficult performer. Some of you may know her. Elaine Kazan.
Okay.
A really nice lady. She was my friend, but difficult.
Tell me.
The room was always too hot. It was always too cold. You'd see Bismark on a ladder right before the show started, taping up the vents so no air could come through.
Oh, my goodness.
No one was allowed to eat while she was singing. If you had to pee, you were in big trouble, because she would stop you and say, where are you going, and why do you have to do that while I'm singing? But the best thing was, it was opening night for her show, and she was no stranger to a fork, I should say, but she she had a party in her dressing room, which is on the 67th floor. So we sent all this food up there and all this booze, and then the restaurant closed, and we all left, and we forgot about her. So at Rockefeller Center, at a certain point, they shut down all the elevators, so you can't go down. You can't go down, you can't go up, and they turn off all the lights. So here she was in the Rainbow Room in the dark. She had to call 911 and have the cops come and drag her out of there.
Oh, my goodness. That's nuts. Listen, Biz, we only have a few minutes left on the segment. Do you have any more stories about the Rainbow Room? Because I've never been able to hear all of them from you, because every time I'm with you, we were working. But I know the Rainbow and Stars time in your life, you had the most stories.
Well, speaking of mobsters, the McGuire sisters.
Who's that?
Act from the 50s, 3 girl singers.
I don't know them.
Older people will know who they are, but they were very glamorous, and they would come there and they'd send trunks with their gowns in them.
Oh.
And they wore 3 matching gowns, and they were designed by Bob Mackie and Valentino. And they had a security guard.
Sound like divas.
Slightly. They traveled with a security guard. A makeup artist, and a costume person.
Wow.
And, you didn't make that much money. You made a few $1,000s a week, but they spent like $20,000 a week just to perform at Rainbow and Stars. That's how important the place was.
Let me ask you a question, Biz, and maybe this is a little sensitive. You're black. The Rainbow and Stars was very, it was very like a waspy clientele. It was like,
It was a bit on the conservative side as far as...
How was that for you? Did you ever run into situations where maybe there was some racism involved?
Well, I tell you, at one point I was working in the Rainbow Room as a captain before Rainbow Stars opened, and I had this couple, a family from Texas, and they had the jewels and the high hair and...
Yep.
And
that Texas oil money.
Yeah, and the money, and they had a good table, and the waiter or the man went up to the maitre d', who happened to be my best friend, and he said, "We're having a good time, and I thank you for that. I really don't mind black people, but I'd really like a white waiter."
Oh my goodness!
So Patrick was shocked, and he said, "Well, I can help you with that. If you just pay your check, you can leave and never come back."
Unbelievable.
And that was the end of that.
That was the end of that. Obviously, I've never experienced in working in restaurants like racism on my end, but I have experienced things where, being a woman, some people would be like, as the manager, mind you, they'd be like, "Can I speak to the manager, please?" And I'd be like, "You're looking at her, honey." And they'd be like, "Oh, I thought you were the hostess." Because I was young and... in charge, but I would just be like, no, there's no one else to speak to. You have a problem, you have to speak to me.
Yeah.
All right, Biz. Biz has some really exciting things in the works, which we can't talk about right now, unfortunately. So I'll probably have to have you back on the show for a third time in a couple of weeks when we can do the big reveal. But Biz, I wanted to just thank you again for coming back on the show because you are so insightful. Everything you know about the industry, you're a natural at it, which is what makes the best kind of restaurant person. Thank you for listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on AM 970 The Answer. And thank you to my guests this evening, Michael Cecchi-Azzolina and Bismark Irving. The stories you shared this evening remind me why restaurants are such a special place to work in, and I encourage everyone listening to work in one day, even just once. There's no other job like it in the world. Culinary Confidential is now streaming on all major platforms: Spotify, Apple, iHeart, YouTube, Amazon, and Audible. If you want to keep up with the show, follow me on Instagram. My handle is @CulinaryConfidentialChristina. That's the show for tonight. Thanks for listening and have a great night.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.